Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Arsenal Daily Transfer Show, in which we look at the latest Arsenal news, keep you guys up to date with all the latest Arsenal transfer information, get your thoughts, of course, about it in our live chat, and try and break down and make sense of the chaos that we find ourselves in. It is Monday again. I can only apologise for how time works and that you're back to work or back to school this week at the end of a half term, which I'm sure and I hope that you enjoyed. I know it was filled with lots of amazing Arsenal transfer news, obviously. But back to it now, guys, and I hope we can kick off the week with a lot of stuff to talk about because there is a hell of a lot to go through today. So let's waste no time and get straight into the first story, which is regarding Eddie Nketiah, the England Youth International, the record under-21 England goal scorer, going ahead of course, Alan Shearer last year. He has now been linked with a very attractive move from an Arsenal perspective to Leeds United, with reportedly a £20 million offer has been reportedly talked about. That's the price that Arsenal are supposedly looking at for this guy, which, if Arsenal can get £20 million for Eddie Nketiah with 1 year left on his deal, my goodness, that is a good piece of business for the Gunners. Arguably better than the money we got for Alex Iwobi, considering the player, considering the lack of first-team football, considering the fact he's got barely any time left on his contract. This would be an unbelievably good deal for Arsenal to get done. I can see in the chat box Jason saying, take it, Paul, take it, Dado, take it, Paul, take it. Unbelievable to see if we could get 20 million for Eddie Nketiah. I was thinking more between 10 and 15. I hope that Leeds United are watching this. Unbelievable really to think that you could go for that much money, considering he's not going to be getting into the lineup. We've already got his ready-made replacement in following Bellerin coming through, and that money could then be reinvested elsewhere. So really positive news that Arsenal might be able to get something good out of Eddie Nketiah towards the end of his deal. Bite your hand off for it, says Jean-André. Dio Hacker says, do it now. 100%, guys. I can't disagree with any of you there. He is obviously one that we would like to see Arsenal try and get the most money feasibly for. Let's move on to the next story, which revolves around Eddie Nketiah's youth team colleague. Joe Willock, of course, spent plenty of time at Newcastle last season, 6 months after January, and had a stellar time there, and obviously scored a ridiculous amount of goals, 7 goals in a row, equaling Alan Shearer's goal-scoring record there. Not the amount of goals Alan Shearer has scored, I should add, just that consecutive record. Imagine, Joe Willock goes to Newcastle, scores 200-plus goals. But yeah, in regarding how he is looking likely of a future now, Newcastle are, of course, interested in bringing Joe Willock to the club. But as I reported yesterday over at 101 Great Goals, there's an issue with Newcastle right now because they aren't expected to spend loads. According to Kieran Maguire, who runs the Price of Football podcast, he says that it's highly unlikely that Mike Ashley is going to put a load of money into Newcastle this summer. Surprise, surprise. And so therefore moves for players like Joe Willock, etc., may be very difficult to do. However, one of the players that they are being linked with still at Arsenal for a loan move is William Saliba, the French midfielder. The French defender spent plenty of time over at Nice for the second half of the campaign, did really, really well. And supposedly Newcastle are interested in taking him on a loan deal for the rest of next season to give him Premier League experience. Now, according to Chris Wheatley, he is very much of the mindset that he wants to be back at Arsenal. He's desperate to try and prove himself to Mikel Arteta and prove that he deserves a place in the Arsenal team for next season. So a loan move is unlikely, it seems, at this point, especially from his point of view. But it will come down to how he performs in pre-season. We've got plenty of pre-season games coming up. We're going to Florida to play against Inter Milan and Everton, maybe. And of course, I think there's a team from Colombia as well. We've got friendlies against Rangers and Hibernian. We might have the Emirates Cup towards the end of the pre-season part, the week before the season starts, the weekend of the Community Shield. So there is lots of pre-season matches and opportunities for players to get minutes and to get their heads basically in the game and ready to impress Mikel Arteta. I don't think that William Saliba will go. I'd be very surprised and I'd be very disappointed if he did. But you never know in football. Anything can happen. Let's see what you're saying in the chat box regarding William Saliba and what you're saying about that. This club is killing me, says South Africa, which, I'm sorry if I can't help. It's just the news. Yo-Yo says Saliba should push to be sold if Arteta continues to F about with it. Matt G says, no, give him a chance in the first team. Josh Hunter says, give them Holding instead. Of course, Holding was linked with a move to Newcastle before the start of last season. Jeandre says, we need to just give Saliba a chance. No point in buying another centre-back. Saliba needs a chance. FFS says 1984 AOK. Let's scroll down a little bit more and get some more of your other comments. Yo says, how come Saliba can't even make backup? I'll never know. Kevin says, a loan to Newcastle for Saliba would be great for him. It would maybe be great for him, but maybe not so much for us. It would leave us with only, I think, 2 years left on his deal after not playing a single minute of his 5-year contract for the Arsenal first team. So it wouldn't put us in a great situation. If he was going to go out on loan, I'd want a contract extension signed to protect his value, that's for sure. JD says, Arteta doesn't rate Saliba. Another loan season for him. Dano says, keep him next season. Kieran Trippier obviously was linked to Arsenal last week. If we move to the players that look like they could be coming into the club, he is much more likely now, it seems, to move off to Manchester United, which could still be a benefit to Arsenal because it means that Atletico Madrid would then have a vacant space in their squad and some money from the sale of Trippier, in which they may look to move for Hector Bellerin, who has been linked with a move to Spain. Both Real Betis and Atletico are two clubs credited with interest in the former Barcelona youth product, and so therefore he could be on his way to Spain, and Arsenal again could be getting a very nice and sizable fee from Atletico Madrid for the Spain international. Certainly a player that I think Arsenal fans are more than happy to see move on this summer and for us to move in a different direction with our right back. No new links to any more right backs so far this season, which is a little bit of a shame because I'd like to have seen the Zeki Celik stuff kind of intensified. But as you heard from Chris Wheatley on Twitter and from Simon Collins and from a lot of other reports coming out yesterday, is that Arsenal are trying to do their business more quietly, and so maybe we are much more, or rather much less likely to hear about any of the possible transfer news at the moment, which sucks for me and for us, but we'll still continue and we'll battle on going through all of the rumours that are cropping up across the airwaves. Moving on to one of the most disappointing stories of the transfer window so far, Emi Buendia. Now, this may be one of the last times we talk about Emi Buendia, of course, because it very much looks like he's off to Aston Villa. Final details are being sorted on that move. Whilst it is not 100% signed and done yet, it's one that seems to be, it could be announced at any moment now. And I think that it's one that is going to linger in the minds of Arsenal fans until they move for a player. The reasoning for Arsenal's, what's the right word, apprehension, lack of urgency, lack of commitment to this deal, according to Football London, is because of a priority they still have to try and sign Martin Ødegaard. Now, the Norwegian international, I believe, for the fee that's being touted around by Real Madrid, is just not an interest. Just for £50 million plus, you'd be mental to go out and pay that amount of money for a player that's not shown enough to justify that figure when you're not willing to go over 33 million quid for Emi Buendia. So for that reason, I think that Ødegaard is a player that ultimately I wouldn't mind just bringing back, but for that fee, it's not justifiable. And so to know that that's our priority target in this area, when I think there are options at a cheaper price that we may miss out on, is a little bit frustrating. But if Arsenal were able to, say, get him in either for another loan for a year, or if they were able to spend, say, £30 million on him, which is the fee that I certainly would be comfortable going in for him for, then that would be more in my kind of ballpark. But 50 million quid, that's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Odsonne Edouard is a player that you will not see in an Arsenal shirt next season. The French youth striker playing for Celtic currently looks to be on a move to Leicester City this summer. It will be the long-term replacement for Jamie Vardy, it seems, when he eventually moves on from the club. Arsenal were reportedly interested in him, but never really pushed forward with a move, and Leicester have taken the advantage in this one. I know a lot of people were very keen on him and wanted to see him at the Emirates next season, and you will. It just won't be in an Arsenal shirt. It will be in a Leicester City shirt, and fingers crossed he flops because he's not going to be joining Arsenal. So a very quick one on him, but don't get any hopes about it. Odsonne Edouard coming to Arsenal because he's probably, most likely now, going off to Leicester. Nathan Collins is a new link that's come up over the last 24 hours or so. Reportedly, the Stoke City 20-year-old defender is of interest to both Arsenal and, again, Leicester City. They want a figure of around £15 million for this guy. I know absolutely nothing about Nathan Collins, absolutely none whatsoever. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to know anything by tomorrow, because as we've seen with players that we're linked to, we're going to go into a deep dive and try and get as much information anyway as we can. Do a little bit of research on him, find out what he's about, and if there's any more more legitimate links that do come up in the next few days or so, we will then do a dedicated transfer tactical breakdown on Nathan Collins. But he's a 20-year-old centre-back, which for me, I don't really know why we need a 20-year-old centre-back that's a prospect. We're really well stocked in that area. If we go and sign a centre-back, I want it to be someone who's of a completely different and more established level to change the way that we are at the back. So a strange link, but it's there and it's in the news. And so we report on it and so we tell you. But yeah, £15 million move for Nathan Collins of Stoke City is one of the latest bits of information that's come out through the ether of Arsenal transfer news. Make of that what you will. But until there's some more legitimate links to him, I'm going to hold fire on the tactical breakdown on him. But if we do see some more, I will make sure that we cover him in excruciating detail. Moving on to our final story of the day, and the biggest story that broke yesterday morning, that Arsenal are in talks to sign Ruben Neves. Now, this is it's basically a deal which relies upon some other things happening, mainly the futures of these two, Granit Xhaka and Ainsley Maitland-Niles. If Arsenal want to go and sign Ruben Neves, they will be looking to move on players they've already got in that position away from the club, Granit Xhaka being the key one. As we know, he has been of interest of Roma and Jose Mourinho. They've come in with a bid that has not been acceptable for Arsenal. They're looking for more, upwards of 20 million euros to 25 million euros for him, which Roma are struggling to kind of look at as a deal that they want to do. They were willing to throw in someone like Cengiz Under, but I don't think Arsenal are very interested in that. If they are, I'd be a bit shocked and disappointed if they were indeed. Ainsley Maitland-Niles, though, we've heard absolutely no links with him going anywhere. I've scoured literally every nook and cranny of the news sites to try and find some link with Ainsley Maitland-Niles somewhere, but nothing credible that comes forward. I don't really know what's going to happen with him right now. If I was Edu and I tweeted this out, Wolves were obviously very interested in Ainsley Maitland-Niles. If somehow you could reduce the fee for Ruben Neves by including Ainsley Maitland-Niles in the deal, I think that'd be a smart bit of business by Arsenal. But I also want to point out the fact that I don't really want to see Ruben Neves coming in unless Granit Xhaka goes. There's no point having two players that are too similar to each other in that position. If you're going to get Ruben Neves in, then you need to move Granit Xhaka on. And also, what I think a lot of people are panicking about is that this will have an impact on Yves Bissouma. Now, to the best of my knowledge, Arsenal were interested in signing a central midfielder before any thought about Granit Xhaka leaving cropped up. Now, if Granit Xhaka does leave, in my mind, it makes complete sense that would then change Arsenal's transfer view on the central midfield area, and they would look to bring in more than just the one central midfielder. Now, that's my common sense hat on. That does not necessarily mean that is the way that Arsenal are thinking. We know that they don't always do things the way that we would expect maybe a club to do their business. But if Xhaka is then going, I would imagine that Arsenal would be interested in going and getting an additional central midfielder. And I don't think they would be going for Ruben Neves unless Granit Xhaka was going. I could be wrong, and I have been in the past, but it just doesn't make too much sense to bring in someone who is very similar in style to Xhaka. I still think he's better than Granit Xhaka, and I think he's got aspects of his game, like his defensive ability, like his tackling, like his interceptions, like his passing into the box, his proactiveness with that side of things, his technical ability. All of those things are better than Granit Xhaka, but Xhaka's passing overall is a lot better. His leadership skills are a lot better, and his influence and experience are better. But I think all the attributes we need from that position, more competency, more composure, more technical ability, less mistakes, less hot-headedness, and still more proactiveness in terms of passing into the box and tackling and defensive duels, Neves comes out on top in those areas. And so for that reason, I would be absolutely thrilled if we got him as a replacement for Granit Xhaka. I think it's a very good option to go for a replacement for Granit Xhaka. And if you want to know more thoughts about Ruben Neves, we do go into a lot of detail about that in yesterday's Let's Talk Arsenal show, where we talked about the fan reaction to the Ruben Neves news. And if you want to find out about him more specifically, if you want to get a statistical breakdown and some insight from a Wolves fan, little Dan helped us out from the Wolves fan cast, then you can go and watch the tactical breakdown we have already done on him. Link to that is in the description. There should be a link on the top of the screen somewhere for you as well if you're watching on playback. So make sure you go and watch that to be really clued up on who Ruben Neves is, what his statistics are like, how he compares statistically to Xhaka, to Partey, and to Yves Bissouma as well. And you get the expert insight on top of that. So loads of information that you can get on the channel about Ruben Neves, which should help you maybe make your mind up about the situation. That brings us to the conclusion of all the news, which means we move on to our Q&A section of the show. So if you do have any questions that you would like to ask and put them into the chat box, then we will go through as many of those now as feasible possible in the next 15 minutes or so. Philip Crewsden, or Crewdson, I should say, says, I think we will buy one central midfielder. Ainsley Maitland-Niles will be a backup centre mid, a backup left back, and a backup right back. I also think that Joe will be backup 10 behind Smith Rowe. Interesting. I think that if they can sell Maitland-Niles, they will. He is on the list of players they are willing to let go of. But if they can't find a buyer, then he is a very good utility player that can play in a number of roles for us. And so maybe they would look at that as a bit of a plus. But so I think they will sell him if they can get a buyer. Joe Willock, I look as more of a better number 8, an attack-minded number 8 than an out-and-out number 10. That's where he's worked so successfully for Newcastle. And I think you would see him maybe playing a 4-3-3 alongside a Partey with a number 6 holding that position there, with Willock kind of as an additional central midfielder rather than an out-and-out number 10. Because I think that's where he works the best. Ray says, who do you think would make a great replacement for Aubameyang and for Lacazette? I mean, both of them are obviously towards the older end of the scale. Lacazette's now 30, Aubameyang 31, 32. So I would be okay with Arsenal signing, say, a striker that was a slightly older than the young profiles that I want to see us going for. If it was a 25, 26, 27-year-old, maybe 28 is probably pushing it too much. But around those age groups or younger, I would be okay with that. And so my choice, I've got a couple. Andre Silva is one, although I very much doubt Frankfurt are going to let him go. The other one is Youssef En-Nesyri of Sevilla. I really like what he's about, the Moroccan international. I think he would be a little bit pricey, but he's 23. He's really good in the air, really good on the floor, good technical ability. He's not slow. He holds the ball up really well, good link-up play. I think he'd be a really good striker for Arsenal in the system that we want to play. So either of those two, I would certainly be interested in. Wilson says, are you still angry that Arsenal missed out on Buendia? Am I angry? No, I'm not angry. I don't really stay too angry for too long about this, because at the end of the day, Arsenal, and I think this is really important to point out, and we talk about mental health a lot on the show, Arsenal needs to be a part of your life. You cannot let Arsenal consume you, because as soon as something like Buendia happens, it will ruin your life. And so you've got to compartmentalize things. And Arsenal is certainly one of those things that you just put to the side. Once I've done a show, got everything I need to say out, I move on, go and do something else, put Arsenal to the back of my mind. And so, no, I'm not still angry about it. I did a show yesterday on the 10 alternatives that we could go for. And trust me, after I did a show looking at 10 possible alternatives to Buendia, the amount of comments in that video saying, you missed out on this guy, what about this guy, what about this guy? It goes to show you that there are loads of options still out there that Arsenal can go and get that are better than Buendia and have as much potential as Buendia. So, no, I'm not angry with that whatsoever. Rich Cosford says, Tom, nothing wrong with Neves, not the attacking midfielder we wanted. So much maybe Martinelli could slip in behind Laka and Aubameyang with Pepe and Saka on each wing, just rotate Smith Rowe and Martinelli. I don't think that Martinelli is necessarily the central creator. I don't think you would slip him in behind as a second striker. I think he works more of a wide forward position. I think that's his best role, Martinelli. But you never know. We haven't tried it, so it could come out and be great. So who knows? We'll have to see if that's something that Arteta ends up doing next season. Ryan G says, Tom, do you rate Ben White? I'd sign him for 35 million. This is a really good question, actually, because you may have seen the news this morning that Gareth Southgate has decided to call up Ben White to be Trent Alexander-Arnold's replacement in the squad, meaning that he's in the squad over James Ward-Prowse, over Jesse Lingard. And he's really impressed whilst he's been in the training camp, whilst he's been playing in the friendlies. And he has impressed for Brighton last season. He did really well for Leeds prior to that. And Leeds wanted to sign him permanently, but they couldn't. And then this season, he's done really, really well for Brighton. So is it worth going for £35 million Ben White? For me, it isn't, not because of the player, and not that I don't rate him, I do. I just think if you're going to spend big money on a centre-back, I'd spend more, and I'd spend it on a much, much better centre-back than Ben White, personally. That's just how I view that position. It's a position that we're well stocked in, and so if we're going to upgrade in it, I'd rather see us go big and buy a real marquee, top-quality, world-class centre-back than just improving ever so slightly, if you know what I mean. Let's scroll down a little bit more. Yo Hacker says, why do you think Arteta rates Odegaard so much? I think because he's very good. I think he's a very good player. He's got really good technical skill. His leadership qualities are great. He integrated into the team really well. His raw goals and assist stats weren't high, and I'm not surprised by that because he spent the first half of last season injured, and he's had to assimilate gradually into the team. I think the fact that he's already played for Arsenal is a big factor. You don't need to transition. There's less risk about that type of signing. The risk increases the more you pay for him, and I think that's probably the biggest problem that's associated with the Odegaard deal. But I think he likes him because he's a good player. It's as simple as that. I do rate him. I just don't rate him at £50 million rating right now. Kiki says, what if we lower Odegaard's price? He's still young and has a very high ceiling, could become a very good signing. Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. If we can get him for 30 million quid, mate, I'm all on board. I just wouldn't be going 40 plus for this guy. JD says, do you think Arteta will play a midfield three of Partey, Neves as a CDM and a Willock as Emile Smith-Rowe? I don't think Neves works as a sole CDM. I don't think that's his best position. I think he works best alongside another central midfielder in a three, or he works in a two as long as you're playing a back three behind him. But I think actually the best way to use Neves is the way that I'd want to see Granit Xhaka used if we were keeping him, which is alongside Partey, but with a number 6 in behind, giving Partey more security to go and be the influential player and the world-class player that he can be. It also gives Xhaka that bit more security that Thomas Partey isn't having to cover all the time. So I'd like to see Neves play alongside Partey with a number 6 like a Bissouma in behind him. I think that would be the best situation for Arsenal. Constantine says, Tom, what do you think about Christophe Aguerd from Celtic? His stats look very good. Again, it's a centre-back that I don't think for now is the target that Arsenal should be looking at. I don't think Arsenal should be going for a potential centre-back. It's either a centre-back that's got unbelievably world-class potential and it's already playing really well, like a Tapsoba, for instance, or someone that's established, 25, 26, already at a really, really high level. And that Aguerd does not strike me as that, to be honest. Yo-Yo says, if you were Edu, would you sell Aubameyang to raise funds for Odegaard? It depends who you replace Aubameyang with, because you need to replace that position. So it's a lot harder to answer that question because I don't know who you were bringing in to replace in that area. Barley says, how much do you think Matheus Pereira or Daichi Kamada would go for? I think both of them would be around the 25 to 30 million pound mark, based upon reports, and we covered them both in yesterday's 10 alternatives to Buendia show. Wilson says, why are some Arsenal fans so snobby about Neves? Because, Wilson, the perception about Arsenal is that we should be challenging for titles and we should be competing with your Cities, your Liverpools, your Uniteds next season. And many would feel that Ruben Neves is not of the quality to be able to do that. I look at Arsenal in a very different way. I think we should be aiming to one day compete again for titles, but that's not a realistic aim for next season. The realistic aim for us is to progress so that we're pushing again to try and compete to getting back in the top 4. Once we're then stabilised in the top 4, then we can have the target of pushing towards a title. It's just naturally how you need to work things. And so Ruben Neves, for the next couple, 2, 3, 4 years, as we're looking to stabilise ourselves once again as hopefully a top 4 club and then push for titles, I think is a great player, a player that's got really good potential. Is still only 24 years of age. But the reason why people don't is because they just don't think he's good enough. They think we should be going for players that are better. I struggle to know who you would go for that's better in that role. And by the way, I'm not talking about your Bissoumas because it's a different player. It's a different position. It's a 6 as compared to an 8. It's a different position. I look at Neves. My liking of Neves is not a preference of him over Bissouma. My liking of Neves is he's a very good Granit Xhaka replacement if he goes. We should be looking to sign Yves Bissouma anyway. And if we do go and sign Ruben Neves, I will still be looking for Arsenal to bring in your very mobile number 6 that Bissouma can be. or a Lokonga could be, although he's slightly further ahead, I think, than Bissouma in terms of positionally on the pitch. So that's why I think fans turn their noses up at Neves, because they always want more. But he's a very good player, very technically gifted, and apparently underrated, which I didn't think he was, but apparently he is. So we'll see if it goes through. I saw a few questions about Mavropanos. The 33 says Mavropanos pocketed Erling Haaland last night. Do you think we should sign him or keep him? That leaves us room to spend elsewhere. Look, the more I watch Mavropanos, the more he impresses me. Very much the same as what Joe Willock. Joe Willock completely changed my view and opinion of him with how he played at Newcastle. He was excellent for Newcastle, and it's changed my mind about wanting to see him go. He has absolutely turned things around for me. Mavropanos is someone that I always was intrigued by, but was never really convinced that, oh yeah, he's going to turn out to be some amazing player. But he had such a good loan deal at Stuttgart and is continuing on to be good, that I hope he comes back for pre-season. I hope that Arteta takes a real good look at him, because if we can see a player in him, and if there is the potential there for him to be a starting centre-back in the future, then you save yourself so much money. Because if we're honest, we're not going to be getting any more than 20 million if we're very lucky right now for Mavropanos. I think it's going to be very, very difficult to get anything more than that, especially for the clubs that are interested in him. The more he plays really well, like we saw last night for Greece, then maybe you've got the opportunity to see, a higher fee. But for now, bring him back, integrate him into pre-season, make an assessment. How well is he doing? Is there any interest? Is it worth him going back on loan? Is it worth him staying? If he is going to go back on loan, get him to sign a contract extension, protect that value, and then move forwards. But he's someone with potential and someone that should be treated seriously and not just cast away willy-nilly. I think he's someone that you should assess and give some, because I think he's earned it. I think he's earned that assessment. So Hill says, Tom, 33 million rising to 40 and a sell is a bit much for Buendia. Now I feel we dodged a bullet. What about you? I still rate Buendia very, very highly. I fear he's going to do very, very well at Aston Villa. I hope he doesn't. I hope he absolutely flops. I don't care about being proven wrong. I hope he fails. Absolutely. But yeah, I fear that we made a mistake with that one. But we will see. We'll wait and see if it turns out not to be what we want it to be. Let's scroll up. JD says, if Neves can't play as the lone CDM, then why are we signing him? Well, because it's a Xhaka replacement. That's why. Drizzy says, if Neves were to come in, would you give him the armband? No. I don't look at him as, oh, actually, that's wrong. He was captain of Porto at a very young age. He has those leadership qualities. I'm not sure. I shouldn't have cast it away so frivolously is the right word. I shouldn't have sidetracked it so badly. I think that there's a potential there. I always find it a bit weird about giving the armband to someone who's just come in. It's very rare that happens. You saw it with Harry Maguire at Man United, and that is going all right. But yeah, I don't know. I think I have a real, not obsession, but a real want to see Kieran Tierney as Arsenal's captain. And I think he's got all the makings and the characteristics to do that, to be honest. 1984 AOK says, why do you think Arteta never picks the same 11? It's very frustrating. I don't think he trusted the squad, to be honest, mate. I don't think he trusted things at all last season. He admitted he made mistakes, and he made a hell of a lot of mistakes. So yeah, I think that's probably why. Michael O2 says, it's looking like Arsenal are looking for more of a deep-lying playmaker next to Partey, more than a mobile number 6 that recycles it. What do you think? Well, I hope, Michael, they're looking for both, because I feel like they've got their the deep line playmaker in Granit Xhaka, and I feel like they're only looking at someone like Neves because Xhaka might go, and maybe they're not willing to let Xhaka go until they get a replacement, or vice versa. And if we are going for a Ruben Neves, as we talked about earlier, I still think Arsenal would be open to signing the Bissouma type player. I hope that's the case. If it's not, then that's a big, big criticism, then with a big, big conversation that we need to have about Arsenal. Let's scroll down and go for another question. Here we go. Toby says, I find it baffling that Arsenal fans want Xhaka gone so much, but want to replace him with the Portuguese version of him. We literally could spend the same amount of money and get Locatelli. Toby, I disagree with you. I think that Ruben Neves has got qualities in other areas that are much better. I mean, if you look at them statistically, they vary wildly. Xhaka's statistics are far and away better in a passing sense, whilst Neves' passing stats aren't bad. They're just not as good as Granit Xhaka's, whereas Neves' defensive ability is much better. His passes actually going into the box are a lot better. Clearances, blocks, interceptions, defensive duels, tackles, all of these things are much better in the Portuguese player's half. Obviously, he likes to push a little bit further forward and take his shots from outside the box, although I wouldn't describe him as a goal-scoring midfielder because it's not like he drives into the box to get onto the end of chances like Joe Willock does. I look at Joe Willock as a goal-scoring midfielder. Neves is someone who just likes to take a shot from outside the box. It's different. But yeah, it's not the Portuguese version of Granit Xhaka by any means whatsoever. He is a different player. He plays a similar role of deep line playmaker, but there are different styles of that position. I don't look at them as carbon copies of the same position whatsoever. Jasha says, hi, Tom. Do you think we are too quick to wrongly judge our own home players? I.e., Willock has been written off, and now many more want to keep him at the club after he was given a run of games. Yeah, Jasha, of course we do. Of course we do. I do it all the time. We do it throughout the season. The amount of times I pretty much wrote off Eddie Nketiah pretty much immediately. That's turned out to be the case. I wrote off Joe Willock pretty early on. That turns out I could be very well proven wrong about that. Reece Nelson I've written off. I mean, if he was to turn things around, amazing. I would love nothing more. I think that the thing is, Jasha, is that there are a lot of people that are very scared on social media and scared who are content creators to be wrong. And we've talked about this before. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. It's just an opinion. What's wrong is if you get abused for that opinion or abused for being wrong about it, which is not okay, and why we don't accept that type of talk on the channel. I think that I write players off a lot because my expectations are that we should be only looking at players that are going to progress us and move us forwards. My opinion about the players that are going to do that might be different to yours, but there are some players like Nelson and Nketiah that I don't think are going to do that. Willock, I didn't think was. He now looks like he could be if he can replicate that form against Newcastle. But yeah, I think people get very hung up on that situation. Mark says, do you think the Arsenal women's team is better than the men's team? Well, contextually for their sport, yeah, 100%. 100%. The Arsenal women's team have been historically one of, if not the best women's team in the country. I know that more recently Chelsea have been absolutely dominating things, and we're seeing Man City on their rise, and Man United are now on the rise as well in the women's game. But Arsenal historically have been the best in England in the women's game. So yeah, 100%. And they're still obviously they weren't able to do what they wanted this season, but 100% they're way better than the men's team contextually by far. It's not a case of throwing 11 against 11 onto a pitch and seeing who wins, because that's pointless. It's ridiculous. It wouldn't happen. It's contextually silly. But it's just, yeah, contextually they're way better, way better. Alan Matthews says Aziz should be loaned out. What do you think, Tom? I don't think he will get playtime. I mean, I'd be absolutely fine if Aziz got loaned out. It depends on the place, but getting him regular minutes at a good level team, Championship maybe, I think is really important for his development. So yeah, I'm more than open to see Aziz go out on loan. Arsenic Gunner says, is Bissouma, Neves and Partey a title challenging midfield? Well, I mean, I don't think you can have title challenging anythings. I think you need a title challenging team. I think those three certainly have the potential to be part of a team that could challenge for top honours. But you need the rest of the team. It's as simple as that, really. It's a really difficult question to answer. Let's scroll down. Daniel Roberts says, can you get George Bird on to talk about the under-23s? We can certainly try, Dan. We can certainly try. So Hill says, Tom, weird thought, but should we be looking for someone like a McGinn or a McNeil as a depth? I mean, McNeil's more your left-hand side, isn't he? McGinn's more of your central midfielder. It depends who we let go of. I think we've got a lot of depth anyway. You've got your El Nenis there. Maitland-Niles is still here. We might bring in two central midfielders. Joe Willock's come back. You've got youngsters like Aziz and Catalin Kurjan coming through. You've got other players coming back as well. So I don't think we need to necessarily go for one of those kind of options that would cost us a bit of money, especially McGinn signed a new contract recently as well. So that would be expensive and probably not worth it. So it depends. We need to focus on the priorities first, which is getting in those key positions. Anyway, let's round things off there. And thank you ever so much, guys, for tuning in. Much appreciate your time. Tuning in this morning, as always. We do these every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. every single day. Hopefully, I'll be putting another show out for you a little bit later on. There hopefully will be a tactical breakdown on Yuri Alberto coming out very soon to give you guys some info on him. We were linked to a Brazilian striker playing for Internacional. So hopefully that'll be out soon. Tomorrow, there'll be the Arsenal Transfer podcast. I'll be joined by some of the members from the Discord server. So make sure you tune in for that at 5 p.m. UK time. And then on Wednesday, fingers crossed, I should be joined by Arsblog, Andrew from Arsblog, to have a chat about the transfer window and stuff like that in the morning show. So plenty of stuff coming up for you guys to have a discussion about, plenty of stuff for you to sink your teeth into. If you haven't already checked out all of the tactical breakdowns we've been doing on the channel and the discussion shows, please do. We're on our way now to 24,000 subscribers. We literally hit 23K about 2 days ago, and we're already up to 23.2 something. So it's crazy. Keep on subbing, keep on liking the shows, keep on telling your friends to watch it. We really appreciate it. I wouldn't have been able to quit my job and do what I want to do for my living if I wouldn't have you guys. So I cannot speak highly enough and appreciate all of the support you guys give. So we'll see you again very, very soon. It's been a pleasure as always. And as always, up the Arsenal.